We released a report on the baseball shooting that, again, it was a report. It wasn't a reinvestigation of the investigation. It was a report on the investigation. Let me just tell you, it took us 8 years to get that. But for Director Patel committing to us that he would have it to us, we would still be waiting. I mean, Director Patel came in and he has kind of pulled the curtain back, and he's going to do what he can to be as transparent with us as possible, and that's exactly what he did. So we were able to look at that report and you know, that investigation rather, and turn out our own report, and showed really a lot of real flaws with the investigative process, and it kind of underscores the problem that exists in the IC in particular with regard to shortcuts and analytic integrity and political bias and narrative-driven fact-finding and things of that nature. So it was a pretty exhaustive report that we turned out yesterday.
Well, that's really unfortunate. I mean, your committee found that the FBI failed in its investigation of that 2017 congressional baseball shooting. They downplayed the gunman's anti-Republican motives. Even Louisiana Congressman Steve Scalise and 3 others were shot. The gunman was shot by police and later died, but this report stated that the FBI used false statements, manipulation of known facts, biased and butchered analysis to support a narrative that the shooter, James Hodgkinson, committed suicide by cops without any nexus to domestic terrorism, Mr. Chairman. How is this allowed? So there was no connection to terrorism initially, and now we see completely different narrative in this report?
Well, first off, suicide by cop narrative was, on its face, was wrong because there were no uniformed police officers present when the shooting started. So he was there, and we knew that he had a manifesto on his person. We had he had a list of other Republican members in his pocket, and he was, engaged in a long-term, a 10-minute firefight. And in a firefight, 10 minutes is a long time. That was not suicide by cop, and any reasonable person would have dismissed that immediately. And so they stuck with that narrative until 2021. In May of 2021, for whatever reason, there was no new information introduced in the investigation, but they decided in May of 2021 to say, if we had it to do over again, maybe we would consider that there might be a nexus to domestic terrorism. That's a problem. The fact that it took them 4 years to come to that conclusion, and without any new information in the investigation. So there was this investigation is chock full of questionable conclusions, and really the methods that they used and the political bias that was demonstrated in this is just unconscionable.
I mean, it really is, and the whole thing is unconscionable. How are we supposed to trust our elected leaders if it's all lies because of their, insistence on keeping their grip on power? That's all this is about.
I represent roughly 800,000 constituents, and I'm their voice. I'm the one that is supposed to be up here trying to be able to go back to them and say, yeah, you can trust the intelligence community. But I can't do that. I can't go back to my constituents and say that our federal law enforcement and our intelligence community, we don't trust them. We want to get to a point where we can say that we trust the IC. It's important that we have that relationship, that they're doing the job that we sent them there to do for us, and that our federal law enforcement is also equally yoked in that effort. And we can't right now say that. Now, we've got some new leadership, and I'm very encouraged by that across federal law enforcement and the IC. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to report back in a year or two that what we've seen a sea change. We can now say that we're reestablishing that relationship of trust.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it's all been a bunch of lies. So, beginning with Russia collusion. And I don't know where this started, but the trust and credibility of the intelligence community has been just ripped apart. But I got to get to the reconciliation package with you, sir, because